I knew the title before watching it, and I wouldn't have guessed at all. I was like, he has to choose between killing Melissa or Jason?
I know what I would choose.
Hello, and welcome back to Rewatching Home Movies, a weekly watch-along podcast where three friends break down the 2001 Adult Swim animated series, Home Movies. My name is Tim, and I am obsessed with home movies.
My name's Adele, and I'm a home movies newbie.
My name is Marcin, and I've never seen home movies.
Home Movies Season 1, Episode 13, titled Brendon's Choice. Original air date October 7th, 2001 on Adult Swim. Written by Brendon Small, Bill Broadus, and cast. The synopsis for this one: after winning a local film making award, Brendon becomes curious about his father.
I tried to avoid titles of the episodes, and when you said Brendon's Choice, I did the Shaq face at you with the hot wings. Just
Yeah.
Oh.
I didn't know that's a... Ooh.
See, I knew the title before watching it, and I wouldn't have guessed at all. I was like, he has to choose between killing Melissa or Jason?
I know what I would choose.
Well, before we jump into this episode, the Season 1 finale, why don't we take a quick little dip into the Creative Corner, shall we? The Creative Corner, of course, is time that we get to spotlight anything creative. We're either consuming, producing, checking out, whatever. Who would like to go first?
Adele.
Me. My Creative Corner is I obtained a laptop, and I haven't used or had a laptop since before the pandemic because mine took a shit. And this one's really nice, and it comes with, the most updated GarageBand. And I love music. I've always wanted to learn to, create music, but I suck at it. And using GarageBand has really, let me scratch that itch. And it's been fun, just playing around with beats. And, I'm being creative. So my Creative Corner is me.
Hell yeah.
Drop the one that Adele sent me here.
Don't let the ghosts and the ghouls disturb you,
darling. The only ghoul in the house is you.
You remember the fun we had when you poisoned me? Yes. Arsenic on the rocks. About you.
You can put it in here if you want. I don't care.
Yeah, I'll put it in because I'm going to keep it a buck with you. Sometimes when people are like, hey, I think I'm going to try X, Y, or Z, there's a learning curve to everything. A lot of people, when they try something, dude, if we went back and watched my first set of stand-up, it would probably be very cringy.
Mm-hmm.
The first beat that you made, that you played for me,
mm-hmm.
I was like, oh, this is like a professional sounding beat.
No.
I felt like
She's rolling her eyes, but I also, when you sent it, I was because I've tried GarageBand and I've tried FL Studio and I've made some crap.
I'm saying, dude, I was like, if I made a beat, it would sound like this. Do, 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 do.
Oh, I mean,
like literally.
No, I have some music that is in Puzzle Valley and Eldritch Journeys that I made on FL Studio. That's that's it,
yeah.
Because that's all I knew how to do. So the fact that you brought something that may not be your best work, but is it decent, professional sounding. I was really proud of you, and that sounded pretty dope.
Thanks, guys.
If you don't want to take that compliment, I will just say this. I am excited to see where this journey is going to take you, because if your beats are this good at the beginning, I can only imagine in 6 months or a year from now, you're going to be making some amazing shit.
I hope so, because everything I've done after that first beat, I'm like, this is shit. This is crap.
But no, that's...
I peaked. I peaked with my first beat.
That's the thing, though. Because I feel the same way every time I do anything. Like a new Puzzle Valley episode, we do it, and I feel like shit until I get a chance to edit it and put it out, and someone says nice, or something like that. But... you just have to keep going at it and just keep messing with it, because the first step of being good at anything is being bad at it. That's
true.
Absolutely.
That's something I've stuck with. Don't go watch my first YouTube video, but if you did, I would cringe, I would freak out, because but I'm so glad I did, because it allowed me to learn and to be better, and you're still learning. When I first started painting, I was terrible at it, and I would still argue that I'm still terrible at it, but I'm more adequate, and it's so fun. It's so nice. You don't have to be the greatest of all time.
I will say that just being an artist in general, seeing the progression of work is very satisfying in just anything that you do. So
Yeah.
I know I gotta stop being hard on myself, but it's just so much fun.
Yeah,
It's just so fun and easy.
It's so much fun to be like, you fucking suck, dude.
Yeah.
I will drop the beat, and people can hear it. I really like the first beat that you made.
They're gonna be mid.
I love that. They say that about everything. That's the thing with music, especially. Everyone will listen to it and not really take time to process it and be like mid. They don't know what they're talking about.
Right.
Yeah, that's true.
Haters gonna hate.
They really are.
Even Jesus had haters.
That's right.
Me.
Still does.
Yep.
The Vincent Price still stuck in my head, which, remember the time you poisoned me.
Arsenic on the rocks. That's my favorite part of
Oh,
that.
it's so good.
Oh yeah. Good creative corner.
Well, my creative corner is my cousin, Shannon Conway. She is an artist. We had her on the fundraiser interview. She's
Hell yeah.
a graphic designer. She's an artist. The thing about Shannon, I've always looked at her as oh, she's so cool. She had the saxophone. We would go to family parties and we weren't I would never really talk to her because I was oh, she's so cool. She had to play the saxophone, and then she was in a rock band. I was with a partner at the time, and we went to one of these indie shows, and I saw Shannon there, and she was in the band playing, and I was like, that's dope.
Oh my god.
Yeah, and now she's a graphic designer, and she makes all of this amazing art, and she constantly posts on social media about how hard it is to be an artist, like you're talking about with imposter syndrome. So she always puts these little quotes and how hard it's been to make all of this stuff. She had a print shop at one point where she made a bunch of stuff, and she talks about the highs and lows, and she only has 2,000 followers on Instagram, and people talk about how hard it is to get followers and to be successful, and what does it mean to be successful. She has made so much art for a bunch of different bands that you guys have definitely heard of, Action Adventure. Mother and Cave Town just released a single they did together, and she did the art for it.
That's dope.
Yeah, so I really want to plug her because she is such an amazing artist, and it sucks that we never really got to connect growing up. I really wish we did, because she's so creative and she's so nice and helpful and wants to allow other artists to grow, and just like she did, and to show that it doesn't matter how many followers you have, it doesn't matter, these people will find you if you're trying. So I just wanted to shout her out as my creative corner. Her Instagram is ShanConArt, and if you want to just look her up, ShanConArt.com. She's everywhere. She's so fantastic, and if you have the money, definitely commission her, because she will put something amazing in your hands.
Oh shit, that's awesome.
Doing
Is she local?
Yeah, she is local.
Nice.
Yeah, doing creative projects, especially like this one, I would love if we could get to a point where we could commission different art styles from different artists, stuff about our podcast, fan art, or whatever. So no, definitely encouraged to check out and support any and all artists. Does she have a Patreon, or is she just straight commissions?
She has a website. I'm sure she has a Patreon somewhere up there. All I'm aware of is her Instagram, her Facebook, and her website.
Nice.
But she has so many different things.
Yeah. Well, I think that's another one that we really can and should and will add to the Friends of the Pod at the bottom of the link tree.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
So, yeah, absolutely. That's dope. I love it. I love it. So I guess that would leave just me for the Creative Corner. This Creative Corner is a partial Creative Corner, partial kind of shout out / thank you. My Creative Corner for the season 1 finale is going to be the Home Movies Brendon posting Facebook group. This is a group that I found. Actually, I think it was a little after we started the podcast, perhaps. But, as I'm constantly scouring the internet for home movies related things, I came across this Facebook group. There's like 20,000 members. And it's such a fun group. Everybody's very positive, very kind. I went in there not to be like, I'm going to show these guys my podcast. I went in there to post some shit tier Brendon posting memes. I made a lot of Coach McGurk memes. It's really funny to me that if I showed you literally all of these memes, you'd be like, I don't understand why this is funny. But home movies, I think, as we're slowly discovering, well, I've known it's got such a great fan base. And it's just, people from all walks of life who just for one reason or another, that was their comfort show. And in this group, people will talk about their love for home movies. People will just post a literal random quote from an episode and it'll get hundreds of reactions and 30, 40 comments. It's a very pure group. I really enjoy it. So after I think my 6th or 7th shitpost meme, probably featuring Coach McGurk, as most of them do, I did make a post about the podcast. And I will say, anytime that you put yourself out there, especially on the internet, creatively, it really opens yourself up to a lot of, very nasty remarks and very strong criticism. And I will be the first to tell you, I'm a very sensitive person, which is so wild that I started the pursuit of stand-up comedy, because that is like a direct, you see when people don't like you, and it's quite a feeling. But I put the podcast out there and kind of just let people know, like, listen, I love this show just like you guys do. This is just a podcast that I started to kind of share this with, 2 people I care for deeply, and it's a show I care for deeply, and it got such positive reaction and it made me feel so good. So I just want to give everyone there a nice little shout out, a nice little thank you. I mean, literally immediately people are like, I am sharing this with all of my friends and family that love home movies just as much as I do. So it was very kind. It made me feel really good. I'm continuing to post my shit tier memes, and yeah, it's a lot of fun. Like a lot of Facebook groups, you start recognizing people that post a lot, and it's been really cool. So yeah, I think one of my goals for the upcoming seasons, I mentioned this to Adele, I'd like to make a meme for every episode that we watch based off of either a still or something from that episode.
Yeah.
And, I want to post those on the Instagram. I would love to share them, on the Facebook group. So, yeah, I think that's something I'm going to do to continue contributing to the Home Movies Brendon posting group. But also, it's what I do.
Well, I still remember the one episode of Home Movies when Brendon was like, "Gotcha!" Like that's one of the memes I would probably use. I still kind of say that now, and no one gets it. I'm in your world now.
Yeah, I think we could do that. Especially watching the episode, I can throw on the closed caption screenshot of a funny line. But yeah, shout out to anyone who made their way here from the Home Movies Brendon posting group. Thanks for checking us out. I appreciate that.
Yeah, thank you.
Pretty much any shit posting Facebook group with memes involved, I have entered and then left within 10 minutes because of how toxic they can get.
Yeah.
Oof,
So
yeah.
It's nice to see a fandom not be super toxic.
Oh my God, no. It's nothing but love for not only home movies, but then everything that kind of came before and after. There's a huge fan base of Dr. Katz in there. I see all the Metalocalypse heads in there, so... Yeah, it's good. And then actually somebody just posted, and I think Adele shared it, but somebody made a What If Bob's Burgers was made in the animation style of home movies.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I saw you sent that in the group chat.
Right.
Yeah, and it's goofy stuff like that. So. Fun group, highly recommended. I mean, obviously, if you're listening to this podcast, you probably have some interest in home movies. So, yeah, go to the Home Movies Brendon posting page and react to some of my memes. Guys, this was the season 1 finale.
It was, and it felt like the season 1 finale.
Yeah. I was a little worried that the last episode was kind of going to be like, okay, well, it was just going to be like a regular schmegular episode, but this was it hits home multiple
Yeah.
times, and it makes you. It made
Oh,
me
yeah.
see the series as a whole in a completely different light.
Right. So there was commentary for this episode. And one of the big things that they basically touched on for this episode is the conceit of what this show is. And the realization that this show is basically Brendon using his camera to have some semblance of control over his world. An 8-year-old dealing with the divorce of his parents, not quite sure what's going on. It's never specifically said in the show, but in the commentary, the conceit was kind of that Brendon's video camera was a gift from his dad.
Oh.
A gift from his dad to help him cope with the fact that he's not going to be around anymore. And just one last thing to kind of win some kind of favor from Brendon, which he then uses to, like I say, have some kind of control over his life.
Damn.
I have struggled when re-listening to this podcast because I have noticed how many times I talk about my own projects and the way I've gone about, because I look at this show through the lens of a filmmaker making something. And I think I've tried to not shame myself over that, because I think as any creative, any artist who makes anything, no matter if you try to or try not to, especially, you find yourself just dripping some of your parts into your work, like whether it be trauma or this, that, or the other. It just spills onto the canvas and you can't stop it. Yeah. So seeing that in this episode, because I went in blind, you guys and I wanted that. I did not want any warning, and I was there's a specific moment where I was like, oh. And I really, really liked this episode.
That was the same moment, I believe, when I first watched the episode with Adele, and we'll get to that moment when we get there, but I think it was the same moment for Adele, the same moment for me.
I could feel my heart crack.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
It really speaks to, I love this show. It's not just a show about a kid making movies in his basement. There's so much more to it. It's so layered, but then simultaneously so goofy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think that's where its heart is. I really do think that's the heart of the show, is the duality of, this is serious, this is real life stuff. This is a boy navigating his life as an 8-year-old with a single mother, not knowing about his dad, not knowing. I mean, being 8 is hard enough. So another reason I feel this episode was the way it was. Up until season 3, they would have no idea once they put out a season finale if they were getting renewed for another season.
Yeah.
I feel like this episode was their way of saying, hey, we're goofy, we're funny, we're silly, but that heart is there.
Yeah.
I remember watching this episode for the first time and then talking about it with you and being like, can you imagine if they didn't get renewed for a second season and that was just the end of it? That would have been insane.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I mean, I can imagine that with several different TV shows that has happened to.
happened to.
Absolutely.
Yep.
Absolutely.
I can name 3 off the top of my head that have broken my heart in those senses. And that's exactly, I'm so glad that they did, but like I'm also very glad that they chose not to go just another goofy episode. Because it is goofy. It is very funny.
Yeah.
But there are very specific moments where I remember watching it and going, this is where this is where I can sink my teeth into it.
Yep.
Another thing we're going to be putting in the rearview mirror as we continue forward this podcast. This is the very last episode you have to watch that's in squiggle vision. No more squiggle vision. This is done, dude. Again, in the commentary for the last episode, Brendon is like, I hate squiggle vision, dude. My goodness.
I wonder, like, when everything is all said and done and we finish the last episode of the series, if we, like, go back and look at it and just, like, not even
remember
or, like recognize it almost because of that.
I'm thinking maybe because honestly, like having to recap this first season, it's like, oh fuck, yeah, that's right. These episodes were like that.
Yeah.
In my head, when I think home movies, there's absolutely no squiggle vision at all. It is just the straight up flash or vector or animate or whatever you want to call it.
That's really interesting because I can't even remember the first actress for Paula. I can't.
Yeah.
Like
Paula
Brendon.
Poundstone? No.
Yeah. The voices are so similar.
Yeah.
The character, I mean, Janine DiTullio stays very true to that character. So
Yeah.
And the reason I never watched home movies was because it was in squiggle vision every time I saw it. So I'm very interested to see what it looks like and like how I see it, once I've actually seen.
yeah, I didn't play a season 2 episode for Adele, but I think I just like opened up a random and
Yeah.
scrubbed to the middle and was like, this is what we're going to be.
It looks so clean. It's very like vector lines.
But they do mention in commentary that they do feel like, around the end of this season, they've gotten a lot better with the animation and characters a lot more animated when they talk and stuff like that.
I'm excited for season 2.
Yeah, me too.
After seeing this last episode, I'm like, okay, let's
Yeah.
get into it.
Yeah.
It kind of makes, because I've been wanting to watch the episode by myself and then rewatch it here with you.
Yeah.
I'm kind of thinking about not doing that for the next episode.
It's completely up to you how you want to go into it.
It's just that there is such a, like, this episode, like every other episode, it's like I can watch that at home and then I'll
Right.
get into this. But
I think watching this one here and now with us, that was definitely the right move.
yeah,
I personally enjoyed seeing your reactions.
that's
you know?
why
Same.
I don't want to. Is there a continuation of this specific episode, like on the next episode in season 2?
Would you really like me to answer this
Not
question?
really, but at the same time, I just, what? I'm not, okay, I won't watch them. Okay, after the next
Spoilers.
recording, I won't watch them. But after that, then I'll start watching them. That's my thing.
Okay.
Okay.
Fair. Well, let's jump into this episode. This episode, we open up, we're back at the Rosy Cheeks Community Center. But now there's a banner over the door that says it's the annual Youth Film Festival. So we have a guy with shiny hair on the podium saying he's going to present the award for the best young filmmaker of the year. And the nominees are... So we have Sea Monster and Titanic 2. We show clips from both of them. They're, as good as you would think 7-8-year-olds making films would be. But then we have the final nominee, which is Brendon, Melissa, and Jason Perducci. And if you don't mind, I think I'm just going to play it real quick. I think this is the fastest I've just jumped into a clip.
Fat Her. Brendon, Melissa, and Jason Perducci.
You had an affair?
Look, I
And now she's trying to kill us? How could you?
I'm sorry.
Who is she?
Just some woman.
Is it because I'm fat?
No. In fact, she's fat too.
Well, where is she now?
I don't know, but we're safe here in the country. She'll never find us.
Found you.
Ah! She found us. You said she would never find us.
But that's not her.
Beautiful.
I just love that part where he's like, but that's not her.
Huh. I do have a question for Marcin. Did you pick up on the title of the movie?
Fat her. Oh shit! that was in real time. Holy shit!
Same thing happened to me. I was typing out the breakdown here. Adele's sitting on the couch, and I'm just like, oh my.
His reaction, I thought he lost like the entire episode or something.
Oh my god!
Yeah.
So talk about Brendon subconsciously leaking things into his movies.
Holy shit!
Fat her.
I wrote it down. I wrote it down.
That's what it took for me. I put it in quotes. I put fat space her, and I'm like, oh my fucking god, that says father.
How did I not see that? I wrote it down.
I wrote fat her equals father, and then I kept my thing over here so you wouldn't.
I try to avoid looking at your notes because
I appreciate it because I'm probably spelling everything wrong.
yeah. Holy shit!
So fat her, yes, fat her, aka father. After they show the clip, we see Paula clapping. The person next to her, I think that it looks like Paula's mom that we've seen in the previous episode of her asking her mom for money. So, yeah, there's her mom sitting next to her. No speaking lines, but that's her. They announced the winner. Ba 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 ba! It's Fat Her, Brendon Jason Kaliki Pradicki. I love that announcer. I feel like it's Bill Broadus, maybe. They go up, the host asks if they have a speech, and to keep it tight, and then just all three of them are simultaneously talking over each other. So the next scene is the three of them holding the trophy. They're talking about custody rights. At that point, they're approached by Dixie Smithley of Channel 1 News, and she wants to do a piece on him. Jason asks, like, beat us up?
Yeah.
And Brendon's like, no, they want to do a story. So this is very interesting. Dixie Smithley, in the commentary, they couldn't recall who did the voice of Dixie Smithley, but they're like, we got her from this place called the Improv Asylum. It was like a place that they do improv, they teach improv, you know, stuff like that. I checked the end of the episode, and they give a name of Amy Radar. It's like Roeder, but it's pronounced radar. And the reason I know this is because I'm like, okay, Amy Radar, let me Google that name. And I Google it, and it takes me to a page for a woman who's the member of the Maine House of Representatives. And I was like, okay, so they just have the same name. But then I click on her information, and it mentions that she used to teach at the Improv Asylum. And that, you know, she did improv, she did acting, and then in 2020 got into politics.
Oh,
it's the same woman.
Holy shit.
That's dope.
Yeah.
That's a scoop.
Scoop.
Yeah. So her name's Amy Radar. Like I said, she's from the Improv Asylum. She was a member of the Maine House of Representatives from November 2020 to December 2022. So she's explained to the kids that it'll make a great story. She wants to do interviews, follow them around with a camera. That's when Paula approaches. She hugs and congratulates Brendon profusely. Dixie introduces herself, and she's like, oh, are you the mother? And Paula's like, no, I'm Brendon's girlfriend.
It's such a boy mom thing to say.
Yep. And then Brendon quickly corrects her and says, nope, they broke up. She hugs and congratulates Jason and Melissa. Jason is like, Brendon, your mom's all over me. And then Melissa is like, thank you, Mrs. Small. You have very bad breath. Dixie makes a comment. She thinks this is going to be a really fun interview. And Jason nervously says, that wasn't the interview?
When she's kidding, we broke up. That line really was very funny to me.
So the next scene, we're in Principal Plum's office, and she's having a sit-down with Coach McGurk about his anger issues. I don't know if you caught this. Principal Plum is voiced by Paula Plum, who was also the voice of Mrs. Peabody.
Oh.
I did not.
Yes.
Monkey.
Monkey.
She was the one I was also trying to doodle this episode, and she wasn't on screen far enough. I
think she had two scenes. That one and then one towards the end.
Yeah, I'm missing her nose and mouth.
So she tells Coach he scored extremely low on parts of his evaluation, but the one she was most concerned about was the anger part. She mentions that he rips up that part and threw it into the reviewer's face. So the whole time, Coach is kind of sitting there fidgeting with a pen.
He says 0 words the entire scene.
There's a lot of like...
Yeah.
He seems to be going on a facial journey.
Yes. She basically tells him he needs to go to anger management therapy, and if he refuses, they will terminate him. So as she continues to ask him if he's willing to take the anger management classes, he gets very frustrated. He breaks the pen, getting ink all over himself, and then loudly screams, damn it, and then it kind of like cuts it in the middle of him screaming. This abrupt cut leads into Eric. They're at Eric's house. They're about to interview Melissa. He's asking if anyone wants any coffee. Melissa's getting her makeup done, and she looks pretty nervous. In the middle of answering a question, Eric yells that they're out of coffee, but does anyone want cream? Melissa keeps telling her dad to just come and sit down. Eric is just making jokes. And Melissa's like, yeah, this is how he gets when he's nervous. Eric makes one of my favorite jokes where he's like, I would like to have a lawyer present.
Ah, yes.
Yeah.
This was the good joke here.
The dad joke. Yeah.
Yes. And Dixie's like, you already signed the release. And he's like, no, I want a present from my lawyer. You know, like a lawyer present.
And then he slapped the knee.
Yeah. He finds this hilarious, and Melissa covers her face.
She looked real. There's several times throughout this episode where I was like, I didn't get it yet, and I was like, where is this episode going? Because, like, when they had the trophy, I thought it was going to be an episode about greed and how they all wanted to fight over the trophy. And then when it got here, I was like, is Melissa just, like, embarrassed about her dad? I kept trying to figure out where we were going here. And
then you were blindsided.
I was blindsided in a good way.
Yeah.
In a very good way.
Well, I think Melissa seems to always be embarrassed by her dad, but...
Not us. We love her dad.
I was going to say her dad is not embarrassing.
No, we're Team Eric, for sure.
If anything, he's, like, obstructing a little bit. Like, when he stepped in a frame and his back was to the camera, like, I got a little annoyed. I was like, sit the fuck down.
Yeah. Eric is definitely, like, jokes are his kind of coping mechanism when he's nervous. I think. So,
I know a few people like that.
yeah.
I think they're in this room.
I was also thinking of Teresa, too.
Oh,
She's also in the room. She's over there.
I was like,
Teresa.
is it me? The next scene, we're inside of one of Brendon's movies. He's standing under a streetlight, and Jason approaches him and tells him that the cover-up runs deep. Brendon tells Jason that once he publishes the story, the American people will thank him. And Jason's joke, I hope not all at once, because that would be very loud.
What was the one joke that he said, like, the most important man in the United States?
He said it goes all the way up to the top, and he's like, to Mel Gibson?
Yeah.
And he's like, no, I think it was all the way up to the top to the most important man. Yeah, and he's like, Mel Gibson? He's like, no, the president.
Did Passion of the Christ come out at this point?
I think that came out in 2007, 2006.
Not a good year yet.
Yeah, so this would be pre-Christ. Jason proceeds to laugh at his own joke. Brendon just says that he just doesn't find things funny anymore. So Jason hits him with a one more thing before you go, and Brendon's like, I wasn't leaving. And he's like awkward. But then he hands him a stuffed zebra with peanut butter on its mouth. And Brendon's like, oh, thank you, I'll cherish it. And Jason's like, I want you to throw it away. Jason explains to him it reminds him of his father. So at this point, they realize they're both being followed. The movie pauses, and then we pull back to reveal this is Brendon watching the movie with Dixie. So Dixie tells Brendon that she senses his character is tormented by his unfaithfulness to his wife. But in this particular clip, he seems a little more aloof in regards to his infidelity. Is that correct? And Brendon's like, Sure.
Yes.
She asks the significance of the zebra, like, does this represent redemption for your character, with the stripes a metaphor for the cell that keeps him a prisoner of his own dark secrets? And Brendon's like, yeah, that's great. But no, actually, a zebra kind of looks like a horse. And if you put peanut butter on its gums, it looks like they're talking. And that's it.
What a fear as like an artist to be like, to make something and then to someone to find their own meaning in it and then be disappointed when they hear what it's actually about, and it's like, okay, that's fine.
Well, not only for someone else to find meaning in it, but for someone else to find very deep meaning in it that you had no intention at all.
Which, like, that's fine. Like, to find a deeper meaning in something is, I mean, it's just projecting their own emotions onto it. But to be disappointed at what it actually means is kind of a fear.
But that's what the art's supposed to be about, interpretation. That's why David Lynch refuses to talk about any of his films. Like, even Eraserhead to this day, he's like, oh, I don't want to talk about the meaning. It's like, it's what you think it is. And that's why I like art. And that's why whenever I, like, show you guys Doorman, which is something that I think is very weird, I'm not going to tell you what it's about. I would like to hear what you guys have to say, which is like if I pull any of your art off the wall and I get a meaning from it, I kind of would like to know what it's about. But at the same time, what you say it's about is also correct. But what I say it's about is also correct. It's like the death of the author type thing.
Right. My fear is I'm going to tell you what I wanted it to be about, and it's going to ruin your fucking day.
No. I think it's still interesting because I think with art, it's just like we're both correct on it.
Yeah,
that's
true.
We just find a different meaning in it.
Right. So Dixie is correct, but Brendon did that because that's how they filmed the show Mr. Ed with the talking horse. They just slapped peanut butter on its gums and it made it look like he was talking. And this is the only reference Brendon has.
So he put peanut butter on a
zebra because zebras look like horses.
And he did it because it was a thing that they did on Mr. Ed and he was trying to copy that because of some significance.
Probably. It's for some, whatever 8-year-old reason.
Yeah.
He's like, a horse will put peanut butter on his gums because he's talking.
But it's not, it's a stuffed animal. This is a TV. It's fine.
Well, because the budget, we only had enough budget for
the
stuffed animal, not the actual horse. So after that, we see Dixie, and she's interviewing Jason as he sits in the sandbox. She asks him about the sandbox, and he even tells her, I thought we were going to talk about the movies. And she's like, I would like to focus on the sandbox. She tells him she wants to focus on the sandbox and his genesis. So Jason explains he likes sitting in the sandbox because he likes the feeling of sitting in sand, and sometimes he pretends it's the desert.
She was really interested in that when he said the desert thing, because he was like, oh, interesting.
Yeah.
And then and her interest made me actually try to think about why he would think it was a desert, and now I'm trying to interpret Jason's feeling. Ugh.
Because you love him.
I want to understand him. I want to dissect him piece by piece.
So at this point, Dixie shifts focus to the movie now. Fat her. It seems that she's almost impressed. Jason is playing a multitude of characters. Jason explains, he's playing 8 characters overall, 8 of which are female, including one who is 5 months pregnant, another one who is 7 months pregnant, and then one who can't conceive, but is pregnant.
Jason.
Dixie, she genuinely seems impressed. She's like, that's huge range for someone so young. And Jason's like, the stuffing helps.
Oh, I just got that. I thought it was a fat joke when I first heard it. And now it's about like the stuffing to make
the
it.
pillow?
Yeah, okay. Maybe it was because I was hungry
like
at the
Thanksgiving
time.
stuffing?
I was probably hungry when I heard that.
So the following scene, we're at anger management class. Now, in the commentary, they said that Larry was voiced by Brendon. I don't know if they maybe like pitched his voice differently. I did not hear Brendon in the character of Larry.
I was
same.
trying to figure out who Mitch Hedberg was.
Mitch Hedberg was the counselor.
Oh.
Did you see his name in the credits?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, he was the counselor. He was the
Okay.
anger management.
Really? I didn't hear that.
Really?
I'm sorry.
Fake fan.
Maybe it's because his punchlines don't come in the way that I hear a Mitch Hedberg punchline.
Okay, let's listen to this real quick.
Yeah.
I got the audio right here.
It's season finale.
And I was pretty upset, so I took a deep breath, closed my eyes, and thought, how am I going to handle this?
Kick his ass.
Wait, John, hold on to your thoughts. Uno momento, please.
I'm just saying, you kick his ass.
You don't hear
you
Mitch
hit his
Hedberg in
ass.
that?
Find out what Larry did, and we will get back to your comment. Continue, Larry.
Well, I took a couple more deep breaths, and I realized it was stupid to get upset over a parking space. So I drove around a little more, and I found another spot. A better one.
A better parking spot. To the victor, go the spoils. And how did you feel, Larry? Tell us.
Well, I felt really...
Let us all listen to Larry and learn, for Larry will teach.
Well, I really felt...
Think about what you're saying, Larry.
Well, I felt really...
Larry, just relax, let it flow.
Yeah, for me...
Don't hold back, man. Tell us everything.
Yeah. Well, I felt, for me, it was a...
If we listen, Larry...
Why don't you shut up and let me tell them?
Right. Go ahead. Sorry.
I felt good, it was nice to finally, for me...
He felt good. Good is good.
Stop interrupting me!
Felt.
I'm going out for some deep breaths.
Yeah.
Okay, John.
Yeah. Man, that was funny what happened with Larry.
Okay. So I hear it now. It's the way that like the voice goes up and then comes down.
Yeah.
I think I was just trying to listen to Larry the whole time. I was trying to pay, and then this motherfucker.
So this is 2 episodes in a row with Mitch. Mitch was the cop in the previous episode that shows up both at the small residence and then at McGuirk's residence.
Does that make this the 4th episode?
I believe so.
How many is he in more after this?
I don't think so.
Because I remember you telling me something similar earlier on. That's why I wasn't expecting more Mitch Hedberg.
I think the first time we saw him, I was like, yeah, this is the first time we see. And you're like, first time? And I was like,
oh yeah, okay. Because he was the guy.
He played Mitch, the kid. Right?
He played Mitch.
He played Mitch the kid.
And then
he was the cat eulogist.
The cat eulogist. That was the other two that I was.
Now he's the cop, and then
this guy.
Yep, anger management. Yeah, well, we just watched all that. So McGurk is like, that was pretty funny what just happened to Larry. And the counselor tells McGurk, tell me about yourself. McGurk is pushing back. He's really not feeling it. He says he's an angry person. He hates people. He hates a job. And he hates his mother.
Mom. Yep.
He's like, here, figure that out. And the counselor's like, I will get back to you.
Do we ever meet McGurk's mom?
Audibly, yes. Physically, no.
Shit. Okay.
So next scene, we're back in Brendon's movies. Brendon's character, this is the scene where they're in the sandbox and are they archaeologists or something? Yeah. But Brendon's character is asking Melissa's character if she would ever cheat on her husband. She says no.
And he goes,
Oh, drat.
Talk about more subconscious things leaking into his story. Melissa talks about that some parent dinosaurs leave and they never see the baby dinosaur again.
How did I not catch that?
And even Brendon is like, that's sad for the baby. Remember? He's like, yeah.
Oh, man. Well, you weren't aware of the topic yet when that
right.
was said.
Because we haven't quite gotten to that point.
Yeah.
So
see, in this point, I was still trying to figure out what this episode's about. And when they reached for it, I kept thinking, okay, so maybe subconsciously, like, Brendon's trying to, like, get with Melissa. And then that's not at all where we went. No. So I didn't even pay attention to the whole dinosaur spiel.
There's so much in Brendon's movie that has to do with infidelity. I wonder if that was the catalyst for his parents' divorce.
Oh my God.
That's exactly one of the things I was thinking about.
Yeah. I don't think it's ever specifically said, but it kind of seems like, I mean, if his subconscious is leaking into this movie, I mean, the entire premise of this movie, because the character Melissa is playing there is the character who got cheated on by, you know, because Brendon's playing, obviously, multiple.
Yeah. And then also the 3 different pregnant women. One who can't conceive but is pregnant. So the one 7-month and the other one that's like 8 months.
So Brendon's got some siblings he doesn't know about.
Maybe. I mean, but that's the thing. Josie was adopted, so Josie is not the product of...
Not to like get too ahead of ourselves, but does the story of Josie and her getting adopted ever come up? Like how that happened?
No, they talk about it, but I mean, like, talk about it as in like, what do we know about? And it's like, not much.
Okay.
She puts marbles up her nose.
Yeah.
Because I just like, I wonder if she was adopted before they separated or after. Oh, I just want the answers. And now I know I'm never going to get them. I shouldn't have asked.
Well, Melissa brings up that, some parents abandon their babies. Well, some parents eat their young. So I guess it's not that bad. Again, we pull back to reveal that this is Dixie and Brendon watching this movie together. Dixie again comments that although the plot is hard to follow, this film is extremely creative, so she understands why they won the award. So she asks Brendon, where do you think this creativity comes from? And his obvious answer is from his mom. So he remarks that she does creative writing. He's read some of it, and it's not very good, but still it's creative. So obviously he gets his creativity from her. That's when Dixie asks the question, well, what about your dad? Is he creative too?
And the faraway look that Brendon...
I think that was the
disassociation.
Yeah.
I have had that look so many times in therapy where my therapist will say something and I'll just like it. So when that happened, that was the moment where I was like, oh.
Yeah.
Oh.
And that's when we realize what this episode is about. He stares off into space for a hard second.
So we don't really know what this episode is about until like halfway through the episode.
Yes.
Yeah. That's why I was like, the whole time I was like, usually in the first like scene, you kind of get an understanding. Yeah. Like the last episode, the first dramatic scene is like, oh yeah, Brendon got hit by a car.
Right.
This one, it's like, where the fuck is this going the whole time?
Yeah. It's a hard turn. And I think, I don't know, maybe that adds to it.
I think so.
Yeah, I would definitely say that.
Because you don't expect it. Because
Right.
like you're saying, you're like, what is this episode about? And then it just hits you even harder.
And it hit both of you at the exact same spot.
Yeah.
When Dixie asked, well, what about your father? Is he creative? So he's staring off into space, and Dixie is finally like, Brendon, are you okay? And he's like, I'm fine. I'm just thinking. One thing I really like about this episode is the pacing. I mean, it is so solid. We literally go from the scene of Brendon's realization that he doesn't know if he gets his creativity from his father. The very next scene, he is approaching his mom. She's changing Josie. They mentioned in the commentary that the character of Josie at this point, they had to shrink her down because Josie up until now had a very big head. And so at this point, they shrunk down the character of Josie. So she's kind of, I guess, typical baby size.
They also turned down the volume because she'd be like Donnie from the Wild Thornberries. And it would be so distracting. Just like, what are you doing?
I forgot that was like a point of aggravation for you in the first
And she was
few
jumping
episodes.
around in the background.
Yeah.
Like, what's going on?
Paula is changing Josie, and Brendon walks in with his hands in his pockets. First, he makes a comment. He asks if there is another dead animal in the floorboards. And Paula says, no, Josie just, made a mess. And Brendon's like, I'm going to stand in the hallway. But then he kind of peeks his head in, and he's like, hey, I have a question. You know that one guy? He used to live here. I think his name was Father. Paula Paula's like, what are you talking about? And Brendon is like, questions, Dixie, father, interview. And Paula's like, use sentences. And he's like, Dixie's been asking me a lot of questions about my dad, and I don't know how to answer. It's at this point Paula's like putting baby powder on Josie, and she's like, well, I was going to call him and tell him about the award, so I'll give him a call and I'll tell you to call him sometime. And I mean, she's still like the baby powder. And so now the seed has been planted in Brendon's head that his father can literally call him at any time.
Yeah.
So Josie pops her head up. She is completely covered in baby powder at this point. So now the next scene, we cut right to Brendon, and he is watching the part of his movie where Jason hands him the zebra and tells him, it reminds me of my father. Rewind. It reminds me of my father. Rewind.
It reminds me of my father.
And Brendon is just sitting there like...
catatonic.
Yeah.
He is paralyzed.
Curled up.
In the background, the phone starts ringing, and he just falls into the fetal position.
Poor baby.
That one, that was the moment that I related to a lot, because just quick little mention, Season of the Curse 2, you two, Tim, Adele, you were both playing characters.
Yeah.
And you guys were going through the script at one point, and Adele, your character has a line where they say to my character, I don't like you.
Yep.
And then later on, when we're filming and we're going over the script, Tim's character has a line where he says to my character, I don't like you. And then I think it was Adele who was like, why do these characters keep saying, I don't like you? Making your friends say, I don't like you. I won't get into that part. I talked about that in therapy. Don't worry about it. But just that moment where he was rewinding and going, like, it reminds me of my father. That was me. When you guys mentioned that, I was like, oh, shit.
Oh, no.
I was like, okay, we got some stuff to work on. And I think, is it okay if I take the reins just a little bit of, like, the little mention that comes up right after there when he sits catatonic?
Yeah, go for it.
When we find out that it's Melissa and Jason calling him to go to the movies, and he gets in his own way.
Yeah.
That broke my heart.
Yeah, I feel that on a religious level. And to talk about that exact scene where it was revealed that it was Jason and Melissa wanting to go to the movies, it's proof from last episode where I was like, they're not really friends. They just both like Brendon. They're not friends with each other because Melissa's like, well, do you want to go see the movie? He's like, no, it wouldn't be. There's no point if Brendon's not going.
Who would sit in the middle?
Yeah, who would sit in the middle? They're not really friends.
Yeah.
They bicker. They don't want to go to the movies together.
And Melissa's just like, I'm going to the movies.
Yeah. And good for her.
Yeah, Melissa's like, I don't need either of you. I'll go to the movies by myself. I don't give a fuck.
Hell yeah.
That's how I feel.
Melissa's great.
I will say, I think you're definitely onto something. I think for the first season especially, that, yeah, they're just two people who happen to both make movies with Brendon. Like most friendships, I think they actually grow close together as friends.
Is Jason like a neighbor, or is that how Brendon knows him? Because he's not in soccer.
Correct.
Or his classes.
One episode I saw where he was a pile of shit going across the screen.
Yeah, I don't think he's a next door neighbor, but it definitely gets the vibe that he lives within walking distance.
Okay.
Yeah.
And I have jokingly had friends in like junior high school that I'm like, yeah, we're friends because of geological conveniences. That's it.
That's fair.
Like, you live across the street and 2 houses down. We can just hang out.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think that's Jason.
Yeah.
I feel like Brendon knows Melissa from school and soccer, knows Jason from the neighborhood, and that's just how they ended up, all three of them together.
And he went, you and you, come here.
Yeah, make movies with me.
Yeah. Well, I mean, and you're right, too. Like, the amount of argument between Jason and Melissa in season 1 is pretty wild. But
crack the case, boys.
We did it.
Wide open, just like Florida.
Yeah, well, Tim cracked that one.
Oh, you had the hunch.
Oh, I did. I am pretty smart sometimes.
You know what's funny is I actually, if we would have just followed one thread that Marcin like kind of tugged on, there was a part where a car drove by and you were like, what was the plate? And I was like, I don't think it was like anything special. We completely moved on from the end of the episode after we were done recording. We were like, let's just check that plate. And the plate was like 312 FL.
Yeah.
And I was like, wait, is that FL like Florida? And then I'm like, no, we can't read that much into it.
There's no palm tree.
Yeah.
That was it. That was why we didn't go forward.
And then it wasn't until Mortgages and Marbles
Yep.
that he's showing McGurk around. He's showing him that condo. And in the commentary, they're like, oh, yeah, this is Miami.
Yes.
Just like that. The entire 52 episodes, they never once mentioned the state, mentioned a city, nothing. And then in commentary, it was just so like, oh, yeah, this is Miami.
Which is crazy.
Yeah.
Was Brendon Brendon Small is the actual writer. Was he from Florida?
That's a good question. He might have been.
Google.
Now we're at soccer practice, and the coach is explaining to Brendon that not all men know how to be fathers. This scene killed me because, dude, Brendon does look like so distraught, like sitting next to him.
I thought it was kind of a sweet moment between him and Coach McGurk because he's like genuinely trying to console him a little bit and give him advice.
In a very McGurky way, yes.
Yeah, obviously,
yes.
yeah.
So
he's like, not all men can be fathers, and not all women can, because men are not like women. Women are not like, I forgot how
it's
it went.
Women are like men, but men
are not like women. Yeah. But he went on about it's the corporations that are keeping us like this in our minds.
So first McGurk yells at one of the players for standing around too much, and Brendon asks Coach if he's doing okay. And Coach yells, he's like, I'm fine. And he's like, thank you for asking. It was like a very like, hey, but thank you. So getting back to the whole father situation, he tells Brendon he knows he blames his father for a lot of the things. And yeah, they might be his fault. And there you have it. Yep. And then just sits down. He tells Brendon, he's like, don't make the same mistakes I made or your father made or my father made. It's just very like, so Brendon's like, mistakes like what? And Coach then goes on this rant about how he accidentally pours orange juice into his cereal. And this conspiracy. They make us think that, man. They make us assume milk, cereal, but actually, orange juice and cereal is just as good. It all goes to the same place. After Coach's rant about cereal and milk and orange juice, and he's like, because it all goes to the same place. And then he's like, so my point is, Brendon, you got to give your dad a chance.
That part fucked me up. I was like, what?
Your dad might be orange juice in cereal.
However he gets there, I mean, he does get to a point where he's like, yeah, maybe you should give your dad a chance. And then immediately goes back to yelling at Janine for not running up and down the field. This is where he does the bit where he's like, I'll get a rickshaw and I'll run you around. Like,
I had no idea what a rickshaw?
Rickshaw?
I had no idea until he said,
okay.
This is China. Like, this is China. And I was like, wait a second. What the fuck? There it is.
Yeah. He's even doing the motions, like pretending to hold it and like running
it was
around.
Pretty funny. The animation for it got me both times.
I don't like pay attention to the animation because it can be so different. Like, oh, they do like this. And it's like, oh, they're doing a magical thing with their hands. It's like, what? They were just going like this. It means nothing to me.
Oh, well, hopefully next season's better.
Next season.
Yeah.
So as he's yelling about the rickshaw, he realizes that Principal Plum and the anger management counselor have been watching him the whole time while he's been screaming. The following scene, we're back at Brendon's house. Brendon is talking to Dixie about their current project. And he goes on this long explanation of this convoluted plot of the movie. He's got like things drawn out. Melissa's mistaken for a princess, and then some guys are trying to capture her so they could get money from her dad to buy a minor league baseball team so they could retire.
Yeah.
In the or something like that. And it's like this whole long convoluted plot. And then he's like, and action. And then Jason just runs in and yells, I want my daddy. And he's like, perfect, cut.
Felt.
Yeah. Sometimes it's right there on the page.
The following scene, we're at a grocery store.
Ah, yes.
McGurk is quietly counting the number of items in the cart of the guy in front of him. They're in the 12 items or less line, and this guy has 22 items in his cart. So McGurk is even like, can you get a load of this guy? Like, 22 items, we're in 12 items or less. Well, at this point, his partner walks up and drops even more items in the cart. So that's when McGurk kind of loses his shit, right? So he tells him, like, hey, man, you're in 12 items or less. And the guy's like, oh, good, you can read.
Yeah, that part got me.
I like when he says, you better shut your pipe before I clog it with my foot. And then did you hear McGurk say, he was like, was that a threat or a poem? Which I think is just like a beautiful comeback.
That's great. I didn't even catch that. That's
yeah. Quick side note, the guy is voiced by David Cross of like Mr. Show with Bob and David. He was on Arrested Development.
Alvin and the Chipmunks.
Yep. Same guy. Same guy. That's David Cross. It's so funny when we watched the episode, I'm like, oh, I think that sounds like Brendon. And I'm like, I think that's Brendon. And then I listened to the commentary and they're like, oh yeah, we got David Cross for this. And they talked about when McGurk's like, you know what? You're not worth it. And he's like, oh!
That's my favorite part. I really like that.
And even in the commentary, they're like, it might have overacted a little bit on that one, but
I don't know. That just tickled me.
It made me because you can tell it peaked the audio.
Yeah. Oh, you think you're better than me. So Coach like is trying to tell the guy like, listen, man, I was once like you. I have anger management issues, and that's when the guy's like, booyah, and just punches him in the nose.
I love the lack of sound effect.
Booyah.
Yeah.
Booyah.
I don't know why that reminded me of you when he said booyah. Booyah.
Because I say booyah in the cold open of Puzzle Valley 2000.
Oh my God. Yep.
So
you do.
Yeah, I do.
So this punch is like a perfect fade into the next scene, which is McGurk at anger management explaining and saying like, yeah, I guess that's when the guy punched me. We see the anger management counselor and Larry is sitting next to him with the biggest like shit eating grin on his face. Larry is like so happy this is happening. McGurk is like, yeah, I woke up and he was running my head over the checkout scanner.
He was trying to scan me.
Trying to get a price check. So the counselor apologizes that he got punched, but applauds him for his lack of retaliation. That's when McGurk tells the counselor straight up, he's like, look, I think you're bad at your job. All you do is make people angry. The counselor is even like, continue. And he's like, you're going to say it's me, but it's not me. It's you. You make me angry. Literally every time you talk, I get angry.
This is like me talking to my brother.
And that's when the counselor's like, do you like chicken wings? And McGurk is like, yeah. And the counselor's like, yeah, man, I like chicken wings too. And McGurk's like, oh, I thought this was going to be like some weird analogy. And he's like, nah, man, there is no chicken wing analogy.
I thought he was trying to call him chicken.
Nope. And that's when McGurk tells him, he's like, you are a weird one.
He is. I can't explain it. We have a picture still of the counselor up right now. Mm-hmm. I can't explain it, but it looks like a Family Guy character design.
It's the mouth.
It is the mouth.
Sure.
It is the
that's
mouth.
a very Family Guy mouth.
And the nose.
Sure. Yeah, and the eyes, honestly.
It's a whole character.
We have another quick scene. This is Dixie, and she's interviewing Brendon and Melissa and commenting about how they've made over 400 films.
That's crazy.
Yeah. There's a phone ringing in the background. Dixie asks what the longest film they ever made was, and Melissa tells her that they once made a film that was 21 and a half hours long, but they kind of accidentally left the camera on, so there's like a pretty big chunk in the middle where nothing happens.
Yeah.
So at this point, Brendon is like screaming for someone to answer the phone, and both Melissa and Dixie are like, and he's like, sorry, did I interrupt you? Like, he's not
there.
Mentally
he's on a
not
different
there.
planet.
Oh, yeah.
Planet Fat Her.
I feel like there was, when this scene started, you like made a noise and wrote something down.
When the scene started?
Yeah. I don't know if you had caught something. I know there was like...
I think it was the 400
films.
Yeah,
400 films.
Because that's what I have written down here.
Because they also mentioned that a lot of them start in the middle and have no ending.
Yeah.
Yes, yeah.
Well, because like you mentioned that everything started when his father gave him this camera. Mm-hmm. I'm interested like how far off in the past he got the camera, and then I want to divide like how many films per week do they need to be filmed to get to 400 already?
If they even if they divorced like 4 years ago, that's 100 films a year, basically crazy. Twice a week.
That means he's been making films since he was 4? No.
Come on. Yeah, you can do that.
Well,
I mean, if you're allowed to do things, I'm sure.
Right.
We're on the season 1 finale, and this is so far away, but I do know in a season 4 episode, they refer to and show the first film they ever made.
Oh.
And I'm not going to say 4, but they were
young.
Significantly younger.
Okay.
So much younger than
But even then, like you said, if
I would
say,
yeah.
4, that's still 100 a year.
Yeah.
That's insane.
Yes.
Even if they aren't finished.
True.
That's so many ideas.
I mean, you go on the right binge, you go on the right track, you get inspired in the right zone. You can come up with as many ideas as you can.
Right, for sure on paper, but then to try and execute all 400 ideas, that's
well, it sounds like some of them were not fully executed.
Right. But just the action of trying to execute.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Is insane. Yeah. So. A lot of determination, a lot of confidence.
Yeah.
Well,
that only an 8-year-old would have.
Exactly. That's why you got to do it young.
Or a lot of, again, want to have some semblance of control over a childhood grieving divorced parents.
It's true.
Golly.
So, and this was supposed to be a cartoon about some kids making movies.
It is.
It is, yes. So I love this next scene. We're at a soccer game. McGurk is bringing Melissa out. He pats her on the head and tells her great job. It's very wholesome.
This is the first time they're wearing uniforms.
Yeah, that's how I knew for sure they were in a game. Because I'm like, oh, they got uniforms on.
Did you notice what numbers they wear?
8.
8 and 9, yeah.
Oh.
Yeah. I don't remember which one was 8 and which one was 9, but Melissa
was 8.
Ah, then Brendon was 9.
Yeah.
Nice. Let's just play this, shall we?
Thanks, Coach. Sorry the ball went off my head into our own goal.
Yeah, I know. I saw that. It's all right. Just a game. These things happen.
Just a game.
Good try, Jeremy. Nice try. It's okay. Way to move up the field, Janine. Very good.
I can finish my doodle with that lady.
Hey,
yeah.
Coach Hack, what do you teach these kids? How to lose? Because that's all you do.
I think that guy's talking to you, Coach McGurk.
Let him talk, Brendon. Let him talk. All right, very good. Keep it going. Don't quit.
Yeah, I wish you quit, you bum. Don't you have to know a little bit about soccer in order to coach it?
Yes, and he does know a little bit.
Melissa, stay out of this.
He looks like a Muppet, too.
Are you going to have the kids fight your battles for you, you wussy? I've been watching you all year. You're a bum. A B-E-M bum. I could coach circles around you. Of course, it has to be pretty big circles to get around your fat ass.
Coach McGurk, you all right?
I'm fine, Brendon. I'm fine.
Hey, can't you hear me, lard ass? Or are your eardrums filled with fat, too? Clean them out.
Hey, aren't you going to yell at him or hit him?
No, Brendon, I'm not going to do any of those things, all right? Actually, I feel sorry for that guy.
Really?
Yeah, because he obviously had some deeply troubling issues. Probably had a bad childhood, just like you guys. Way to go, Jay.
I forgot about that.
But you're going the wrong way, but that's totally okay.
Hey, what are you gonna eat between halves? Fat? How about a fat sandwich on fat bread, you fathead?
Brendon, do I look fat to you?
Aww.
That part, yeah.
Oh,
You awed it the last time, too.
Yeah.
Because he's insecure now.
Yeah. Now? He lives on Lonely Avenue in Bruce Street.
Yeah, so McGurk has a heckler. And one of my favorite lines when he calls him a bum. A B-E-M bum.
Yeah, he spelled it wrong.
Yeah, the heckler is voiced by Will Lebo, who does, again, a lot of just kind of background characters and voices. So another classic Will Lebo voice. That scene makes me so sad at the end when he's like, Brendon, do I look fat? But yeah, no, when he's like, he probably had a bad childhood like you two. And
Like
just the looks on their faces like,
I guess you're right.
Yeah.
Well, after that, we go to the end of the soccer game, and it shows the scoreboard. Our team lost 6-0. Principal Plum approaches Coach McGurk, and Coach McGurk is so like, oh, hey, Principal Plum, sorry we didn't win, but winning isn't everything. He's like, kind of shrugs his shoulders. He's like, but winning isn't everything. Principal Plum is very impressed that he was able to kind of control his anger. She then tells him that she's decided that he can stay on as soccer coach, and McGurk seems genuinely grateful. He calls her extremely kind. He's like, you're probably the kindest person I know. She tells Coach to keep up the good work, and then she's walking away, and she's like, I'll keep an eye on you. He's like, that's illegal.
That's a good line.
We get to the end of this scene, and we're like, oh my gosh, Coach has learned something.
Yeah.
You know, he took his anger management classes, he understands the severity of the situation, and he's genuinely growing as a person. Where in the heckler's truck, he's driving, kind of just whistling along, and we see McGurk emerge from a shadow in his back seat.
And the car swerve off.
Like Michael Myers.
Yeah, the car swerves off to the side of the road, and then that's a lot of implication on what happens after that scene fades to black.
Revenge is a dish best served cold.
But I think that's just because you hear McGurk, and he's like, great job, guys, you tried. Winning isn't everything, you know, and you're like, oh, maybe he has learned something, and then you're like, oh, God, no.
No, he
it's
murdered
classic.
a man.
Classic McGurk. Yeah, we never see that guy again.
Do we not?
I don't know.
Oh, we'll find out. But
He's going to be in like the next episode. I'm going to feel like an idiot.
Yeah, but if we never see him again, then we know that he is.
Then canonically, there's a reason we never see him again.
Exactly. I thought honestly, when we cut to the heckler, I was like, wait, we cut to the heckler. And then I thought he was going to be a drunk driver, like swerve all. Like, I thought that's what it was going to go to, but no.
I'm going to pretend that heckler in the stands is the father of the heckler that Brendon had when he got into a fight and he was outside.
Oh, yeah.
Because they even had like, you're a bum, like yelling similar stuff at him. Probably just both Will Lebo doing the voice, so similar, but
they both shook their butts at him.
That's illegal.
That's illegal.
That's true.
We are now at the final scene. We're at the small residence. We have Paula, Josie, Jason, Brendon, Melissa, and Eric. We're all waiting for the news to play their segment. Eric cracks a joke about how the dip is good, and he's not even talking about himself. Paula offers him a beer, and he says, no, thank you. One is my limit. And she said, you didn't have one. And he said, well, then bring it on.
Bring it on. Woohoo.
We're at the point now where the news does come back on, and the anchor, Charlie, throws it over to Dixie. Dixie is obviously reading from a cue card. I don't know if you saw, but like her eyes are just moving back and forth the entire time. Charlie throws it over to Dixie with her story. Take it away, Dixie.
Wondered where the next Steven Spielberg, Jodie Foster, or Ed Wood would come from? Well, I have. In fact, I had a chance to sit down and chat with 3 future Hollywood bigwigs who were the recent recipients of this year's Young Filmmakers Award. At ages 8, 8, and 7, Brendon, Melissa, and Jason are very young. But let me tell you, if these kids are the future of movies, then hold on to your popcorn, because we're in for a crazy ride. Charlie?
Thanks, Disky. And speaking of crazy rides, here's Stormy Weatherhead with the latest on that deadly tornado. Stormy?
And that is it. So all of the time they spent with them, interviewing them, filming, critiquing his movies, breaking it down, putting in his head, how creative is your father? They played literally none of it.
Yeah. I was upset for him.
Yeah.
I feel like that would have destroyed me a little bit. It's like, what was the point of all of that? I went through a journey.
Jason was happy.
Oh, Jason loved it.
Oh, yeah.
Also, did you notice she said 8, 8, and 7?
So Jason is 7.
Jason is 7. Jason is 1 year younger, but we don't know same grade. Maybe just,
Well, I don't think they're in the same classes together. Because any kind of like class scene, he's not in there.
Yeah.
That's interesting.
So maybe he's just a grade below.
Yeah.
That's true. He wasn't in Mr. Lynch's class.
That entire situation reminded me when I was young, there was an incident happened that there was an explosion in this town. Nobody got hurt or anything.
Oh, still an explosion.
But
crazy.
There was an explosion, right? And at the time, my mom had worked at a bar, and they had just changed their sign outside to say, come in and have a blast. Right?
Yeah.
So there was this explosion. They see the sign on the bar. They go inside. They ask my mom, like, hey, we saw the sign. Do you want to get interviewed? And we'll, just do a little interview. My mom's like, oh, my God, yeah, that'd be dope. She did this, like, whole long interview. They're filming here, filming there, getting a picture of the sign, my mom, all this stuff. And it was same thing. It was like, yeah, it's going to be on at 9 o'clock. We're all sitting around watching it. They play the story. They're like, oh, yes, in this particular town, there was an explosion. And then it shows the bar sign where it says, come in and have a blast. And they cut to the reporter talking to my mom, and they go, did you put that up before the explosion? And my mom goes, yeah. And that was it. That was all they played. Completely. And like, dude, we were like recording it. We were like calling, like, get ready, here we go. And it was just her being like, yeah. Cut. That was it.
Wow.
That's very.
Poor Donna. You deserve better.
I like that everyone's there to watch the interview. Balloons. There's dip.
Yep. So Brendon immediately jumps up and he's like, that was it. All the interviews, the footage they took. And Paula's like, hey, look at the bright side. They were very positive, and they called you bigwigs.
Yeah.
And then she's even like, my little bigwigs. And at that point, the phone rings. Paula, like, very casually tells Brendon, probably your dad. He said he was going to call after the report. And it's such a tense scene. Mm-hmm. Brendon is looking at the phone. He's just kind of staring at it. I think Paula tells him, like, it's up to you. Eric is even jokingly like, I'll get it.
Yep.
Eric. We love him.
You know, and Melissa's like, Dad.
To cut the tension because he's nervous.
Yeah.
Right. Brendon picks up the phone, clears his throat, and says hello. And that was season 1, episode 13, the season 1 finale of Home Movies.
It felt like an end to a BoJack Horseman episode. I don't know if you guys have ever watched BoJack Horseman, but like the amount of times I was watching a BoJack Horseman episode and it ended and I was just devastated, I had that same like feeling when I was watching it and it just like cut. I was like, oh. And I think you looked at me when the show ended and I had that face still. I was Oh.
Now, up until this point, we've had either just the theme song kind of play over the end. Sometimes we've had, you know, something related to the episode. I'm going to play this. This music was just them wanting something a little bigger for the ending credits because this episode was a little bit heavier than the other episodes. It ends on a cliffhanger. Like I said, they didn't know at this point if this was going to get picked up for a second season or not. I think they really wanted to show that they did have the ability to have a heavier episode with a lot of heart. I think it was probably the right move not to go with just like the generic theme song over the end credits, but more of like an epic song. How did you feel at the end of this episode? Especially with it being a cliffhanger like that.
Gutted.
A little. I was not expecting it to end right there.
Yeah.
I don't know what I was expecting whenever, because you told me early on that like Brendon's dad was going to show up at some point. And I didn't really think about it having any real impact on anybody's character. I thought he was just going to be like, hey, I'm a piece of shit, and then leave. Like that. I thought that's what it was going to be. And so at the end of the episode, when it was that giant cliffhanger, I knew there was going to be a season 2. I know I'm going to see it, but it was still very like, oh, that's heavy.
Yeah.
That's really heavy, especially just a phone call after a somewhat success from someone you don't know how you feel about. It's like, this is going to have an impact on Brendon. Like, whatever he says is going to have an impact on him.
Absolutely.
Well, and I'm realizing, too, it appears as though this divorce happened so long ago. Brendon doesn't seem to have much memory of his dad. He doesn't know very much about him.
Yeah, he's like, you remember that guy that used to live here a while ago? Father. There's times when he says father. Like, he goes back and forth on, like, the use of the word.
Yeah.
Because he doesn't have a connection. I remember just feeling I was like excited, but I was just like, oh shit, that is a lot to put on the pressure of a season 2 episode 1.
Yeah, for sure. I remember the first time I watched it, when the phone was ringing, he was about to pick it up, I was like, is this going to be a cliffhanger? And then it was, and I was like, no.
I didn't expect it to go down this route. Like, every time I've ever heard anything about home movies was that it was a very funny show. It was a very beloved show. I always thought it was ugly. Still do. But at the same time, seeing this episode has really changed my outlook on it.
Yeah, same.
I'm really interested to see where it goes.
It only goes up from here. I don't want to oversell it, but it's just the improvement in quality after season 1. I mean, I definitely feel by episodes 10, 11, 12, 13, like they figured it out. They had the formula. Those episodes are so solid.
I mean, especially this episode. What I noticed from the first, like, I wrote no fucking notes because and if I did write any notes, it was like 4 words a sentence. I was just I was engrossed by the show because usually you had long scenes of just like improvised dialogue for long periods of time and then just like 5 scenes of just, but nothing. It was like, cut.
There was zero fat on these bones. I mean, every scene had a very specific purpose and reason. It flowed so nicely. It literally went from one scene perfectly into the next. There was absolutely no filler in this episode.
What a huge difference between episode 1 and then episode 13 of the same season. It's almost like a completely different show at that point.
I think a perfect example is Josie.
Yeah.
I honest, because episode 1, and then just like Josie's a baby.
Yeah.
Just a baby doing her thing. Like that, I think that's just a clear night and day representation.
Should we give it a grade?
No.
What?
That's
a cliffhanger.
You can't do that.
They did it.
I don't, but I have a grade, dude.
Do you really not want to give it a grade?
No, I have a grade for it. I just thought that'd be a very, like, fuck you moment.
Well, here's the thing, though. It's not going to be like a year and a half.
That's true.
Between our season 1, episode 13 and season 2, episode 1.
Yeah, right. I mean, the joke's there. We can just do... I did a funny joke. Next. Let's grade it.
Moving on. I do funny jokes all the time. Who wants to give their grade first?
I will.
Adele?
Because this is my first A+. Yeah. That's why last episode, when you're like, this is an A+, I was like, really?
Last episode was a really good episode.
It was. No, it definitely was. But this one was like... This one's got my A+, for sure. If not S tier.
I was like, that's where I'm jumping to, where like I'm interested to see what Tim's is. I don't know how we would grade if we started bringing up the S into the category,
because that's not technically a part of the grading system that we've been
doing.
And if I'm being completely honest right now, I love this episode.
Mm-hmm.
I love it so much. This is not one of my S tier episodes.
Interesting.
Mm-hmm.
That's very interesting to me. This episode's getting A+ too.
Hell yeah.
I didn't expect both of these episodes to be as good as they were today. So puts a lot of pressure on the season 2, episode 1. But
doesn't
we'll
it make
get
you
there.
excited for season 2?
Yeah, of course it does. That's the point of a to be continued in the writer's room. They're like, we're going to get these motherfuckers in here.
I remember, and Adele even brought it up. She's like, could you imagine if they didn't get renewed? That would break my heart so much.
I wonder what the fan base would be like if it was just the first
non-existent
season. Well, I don't think that. I think there would still be some kind of...
With the timing of the show and the fan base and then the DVDs, I truly feel like this would have been one of the shows that got resurrected.
Yeah.
I think so, yeah.
Can I tell you guys about a show called My Name is Earl?
Oh, I've heard of it.
Yeah. That ended on a to be continued episode.
And then never got renewed.
Can't stand Dirk Gently. Fuck.
That was the exact show I was thinking about when we brought up shows.
Because they set it up that they were good. They set it up they were going to go on this like epic quest, and then they never renewed the show. And I was like, I was distraught for days.
Can we talk about another show that was your creative corner?
That was my creative corner. Oh, the 10th Kingdom, dude! Mm-hmm. My childhood!
Yeah.
Our flag means death?
I would argue that show has an ending.
It has an ending, but they canceled it when they were supposed to be 3 seasons.
I agree, but it is better than My Name is Earl when it ended on a goddamn to-be-continued episode. I binged that show when it came out on Netflix. I was so invested, and then it just tore my heart from my chest. And you want to know? I never saw Raising Hope. But that was by the same people who made My Name is Earl. Mm-hmm. In the first episode, there's a news report in the background, and one of the news reporters saying, in other news, criminal with a long string of past bad deeds has made up for it on his list, and you'll never guess how it ended. And they cut the TV right there, turn it off. It was
so they were leaning into it.
They were. Oh, it pissed me off. I was so upset. And so I know exactly how it feels when a show just ends with no closure at all.
Oh, yeah.
Well, friends, I have some news.
What?
Is it before or after my grade for Jason?
It's going to be before.
Well, did you give a grade to this episode?
I have not.
You should.
I will. And it is also an A+.
Oh, yeah. Our first triple A+.
This is our first triple A+ episode, and I think this was right. I think this was the right episode to be the first across-the-board A+ from all of us.
Absolutely.
Mm-hmm.
That being said, how did we feel about Jason this episode?
He wasn't gross.
Nope.
He wasn't bad. He was an 8-year-old who was feeling uncomfortable because people kept asking him weird questions.
He was very happy with how the story turned out on the news. He was like, hey, that was great.
Yeah, he was the star of the show.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think this is one of those, like, last episode I gave him a B-, just because he was there and he did kind of a bad thing. And here he was good, but he didn't say anything or do anything that was like, I love Jason for that, you know? So I just gave him a B. But, you know, still good. He's not doing gross. He's still not my favorite character, like a Melissa, like a McGurk. But he's getting up there.
Yeah.
He's just background stuff for me.
We have not completely changed Marson's mind on Jason.
But it's happening.
It's not.
But tides are slowly turning.
Yes.
Why does it upset? Multiple people have told me that one of the things they look forward to in this podcast is your inevitable love for Jason.
The thing about it is, like, there are definite characters in, because I watch a lot of TV shows, I watch a lot of movies, and there's those characters that I really can't stand. Here's a good analogy. In wrestling, right, there are faces and there are heels. Faces are the good guys, heels are the bad guys. And when a heel comes in, it's like, okay, a good heel is someone like Edge who does something dastardly and you want to boo him because they're a good heel. But then you got characters like who come in and they got go away heat, which is, I don't want to see you on my TV screen anymore.
Amen.
And sometimes he does a crazy great thing, like a spring moonsault off of the top rope at SummerSlam in Cleveland. Like, that was amazing. But I'm still like, I don't like you. Like, Jason comes in and he says a funny line. It's like, aha, Mel Gibson. But
to be fair, Jason didn't scam a bunch of 10-year-olds or do dastardly deeds in Japan. So
I'm so glad you said that, because there's like a 99% chance I'm going to bleep the name of the wrestler he mentioned the second time, because I hate them so much.
Let's call them the former United States champion. We'll just say
I don't want to call them anything, to be honest.
But that's what I'm talking about. Like, with Jason, every time he's on screen, I'm like kind of tensed up a little bit because I'm waiting for it.
But that was season 1, Jason.
Yeah. We'll see what season 2, season 3, season 4 even brings us. I have no doubt in my mind that he's probably a better character, but I want him to do something that actually makes me like him. It's one thing to come in and say, like, a funny bit or something. Like when Squidward comes in on SpongeBob and he's like, aha, aha, and he says a funny thing. I still don't like him. Oh, did you just...
You made my jaw pop.
Your jaw dropped. Do you like Squidward?
Squidward is a relatable character.
He is a very relatable character.
I didn't like him when I was a kid. As an adult, I'm like,
relatable.
He's got a fucking point, dude.
He does have a point. I don't like him, though.
I think this is like the 7th episode in a row with a SpongeBob reference.
Because SpongeBob's great, dude. But when he's like... He's taking someone's order and he's like, yeah, I'll have a double Krabby Patty. Daring today, aren't we? Shut the fuck up, Squidward. He's just trying to eat. You got 8 things on the menu. What do you expect him to do?
Whoa. Working in food, I can't blame him for being grumpy working in food, dude.
I can't either, but it's like, this guy's got like 10 minutes for it just pisses me off. It's like, shut the fuck up. SpongeBob comes in here, he says nice things every fucking day, and you're a twat to him.
At least Squidward's real, you know? He's not putting
on
a face.
Yeah, he's just blunt, you know? He just says how it is.
He's not putting on a fake smile for the customers. And I, as somebody who worked in retail and had to do that, respect that shit.
That's right. As a customer, I want to walk up and have the anxiety that this guy's going to...
Just don't go there. Don't eat somewhere else.
Exactly. I don't want to see him.
Don't support businesses that treat their employees like shit.
Agreed. Anyway.
All right, kids. Last thoughts on season 1, episode 13, the season finale, Brendon's Choice.
It was a great episode.
Yep.
It was
Very
a really
good episode.
It was a really good episode.
Yeah.
Other episodes like we've watched before, it was... You know, I watched it, had some fun laughs, and I was like, oh, that was good. This one makes me want to actively continue watching the show.
Yeah.
I agree. All right, that's going to do it for this episode. Let's get into plugs. All right, Adele, why don't you go first?
I have an Instagram, and it is called Artisanal of Oddity. That is, art is anal of oddity. And then I also have a TikTok, which is Elida Alora 1111. ELEDA, and then it's a ALORA 1111.
Make a wish. I got a bunch of plugs as usual. My plugs are a bunch of podcasts that I've also done. Puzzle Valley, which I already finished. It's a miniseries from my podcast, Eldritch Journeys. It's a high school teen detective story. I put a lot of work into it. I love it so much. Put my heart and soul into it. And I'm also working on the sequel, Puzzle Valley 2000, which is set in the year 2000. It's like a prequel. Adele, you are a part of it.
It's true.
And we're having a great time doing it. Soundtrack is already on its way. I've got a lot of work to do with that. I'm also working on Season of the Curse 2 with my YouTube brother-in-arms, Punkin Nonstop, who has a YouTube channel as well, Punkin Nonstop. He's got thousands of videos on there, so go check him out. That is not hyperbolic at all. And we're working on Season of the Curse 2, which is a really, really fun project that everyone in this room is working on, Tim and Adele.
Hell yeah.
That will be coming together soon. I'm actually hoping to have it done by the finale of this podcast, because I think that would coincide with Season of the Curse 2, which is an homage to home movies and is itself a home movie, so I think it would fit just right in. And I'm also working on another feature film called The Doorman, which I've been working on since 2016. It's a marathon, not a sprint, so I'm working slowly but surely. I think that... Oh, I just dropped the Eldritch Journeys trailer I've been sitting on for a while, so I'll put that in the show notes as well. The Eldritch Journeys trailer's on my channel, Splathouse Ideas.
Nice.
And that's all my plugs.
Hell yeah.
Nice. And as always, this podcast is brought to you by the Happy Corner Podcast. They were nice enough to donate our audio equipment so we could keep this podcast going. So we'd like to give them a nice little plug at the end. The Happy Corner Podcast streams every Sunday at 1:45 Central Time on Twitch. You can find them on YouTube and audio versions wherever you get your podcasts. And that's going to do it for this episode of Rewatching Home Movies. Join us next week for a very special interview with Chris Georginas, an animator and editor for Early Home Movies. If you liked what you heard, check out our Linktree at Linktree/RHMpod. There you can like, follow, and subscribe, or leave us a 5-star review. I will read 5-star reviews on the podcast, like this one from TCOWDT, which says, "Home movies you will want to revisit. A great show with great people talking about a great show. Don't miss this fun trip down memory lane with some of the sweetest people on this earth. You will want to rewatch along with them, and that is the point." Thank you, TCOWDT. On behalf of myself, Tim, and my co-host, Marcin, and Adele, thank you for rewatching home movies with us. We'll see you next week. Bye.